G'day guys, this is just a quick spiel about the whole idea of favoritism and inner circleism and all that sort of nonsense. Look, I just wanted to make sure that there was no misunderstanding about what I actually believed about this sort of stuff and maybe what some other players around the place believe as well. And look, this is the kind of thing that's kind of difficult to articulate. So the only way I could really think of communicating it was with images. So yeah, just forgive the dodgy video here. Okay, this is a DM. Loves Narfell, loves the players, wants everyone to have fun, and he becomes a DM. And these green dots here, these are the players that he has regular, solid contact with. So now look, in pen and paper, you've probably got a limit of about 5 players that a DM can solidly, I guess, DM for. Anything more than that, you're spreading yourself a bit thin. Look, Narfell might be a bit different, but for the purpose of this whole illustration, we're just going to say that a DM has a limit of about 5 players he can solidly DM for. Okay, so these green dot guys, they're the guys who get regular personal quests. They might get personalised items. They've got a strong gaming relationship with the DM. Now, these red dot guys, they're the guys that the DM will rarely or never DM for. Now, this could be for a bunch of different reasons. It could be mainly because of time zone. They just don't meet each other, or maybe those players just have character concepts that the DM just doesn't get, so they can't think of something fun to run for them, or maybe the DM just doesn't like that bloody bastard, doesn't want to spend any time with him. Look, there's a whole bunch. All of these are valid reasons. It's unrealistic to expect a DM to DM for everybody. So this isn't really about favoritism. This is just the way every social group just falls together. It's just a realistic picture of I guess how DMing would run in Narfell. Okay, now for the purpose of this illustration, we're just going to draw a circle around the I guess green dots and the DM. We're just going to call it whatever you like, the DM's circle of contact or circle of influence or relationship, whatever. Look, the circle doesn't really exist. People will come and go between the border of that circle. It's just really for an illustration, just for this little video, just to make it clearer. And we're going to bring in another DM into this picture. You can see there in the middle, in between those two DMs, you've got the bright green dots representing players who have solid gaming relationships with both of those DMs. Now, outside of that, you've got the darker green dots. They're the guys who have a relationship with one of the DMs. They're still getting a good, solid, DM-based gaming experience, and we've still got those red guys on the outside there who are having little or no contact with DMs. Now, naturally, because one of those solid green dot guys in the middle has a good relationship with the DMs, if he applies to, say, for the purpose of this illustration, for DMhood, naturally he's going to get it because the DMs know who they are, they trust them, they've seen them in action, and so we've got 3 DMs now, and that might draw in one of the red dot guys. Maybe that player had more contact with one of the guys who are sort of outside regular DM contact, but now he's on board. But we're still seeing really this kind of cluster, and just to clean it up a bit, we'll just kind of mash it all together, and just again, look, I know the word inner circle is kind of a dirty word, but it's really, I just want to, for the purpose of this illustration, say that there's players who have regular DM contact, and there's players who don't for whatever reason. Now, this circle only exists in the minds of people who are outside of it. You only really see it if you're outside of it. If you're outside this circle, you see that there's stuff going on in Narfell, and you are sharply aware of the fact that you're just not really a part of it. And maybe despite your big efforts, you just feel like you're really not making any difference. You're not really getting the level of play that other people are getting. Now, this can be a difficult thing to sort of, if you're on the outside, if you're not getting much DM attention, you might not really fully understand why. You might not really understand what's going on. So when you see the stuff that goes on amongst players who are inside the circle, you might see resources get dropped on them. You might see them, read them about them saving the world again on the forums or something like that, and brilliant stuff's going on, and you don't really understand why necessarily that you're not a part of it. And of course, it's at this point that people start squealing about favoritism and inner circles, and start singing "What About Me?" When's my turn, and all that sort of business. But I mean, let's just put ourselves in the shoes of one of these little red bastards for a minute. Now, when you're a red dot guy, again, you can feel like you've been ostracised, even though you haven't actually been deliberately excluded from anything. Again, there's no favoritism, there's no actual exclusion. It's just the way all social groups fall together. But if you're on the outside, you don't necessarily understand why you're on the outside. And so whenever there's a gap in your understanding, whenever there's some sort of mystery or something that you don't know, people who are unhappy usually begin to create reasons that are pretty negative, and they can start sort of saying all sorts of crap. Some of it's not true, and some of it's just hurtful to the whole community. Now, personally, from my point of view, if you're a red dot guy, there's still massive levels of fun to be had in AFL. There's great guilds to be a part of. There's great places to go. Great role play to be had with all players. You don't have to have DM interaction to have fun playing this game. And for me, that's what I've tried really hard to communicate to other players that are griping to me about the platinum that just got dropped on Johnny, or the other world saving event that they totally missed, and all the epic godlike loot that gets passed around that they just don't have. And it's like, and I felt a bit of that because I've felt a bit like I'm on the outside, but I've had a massive amount of fun here. This place has been an absolute lifesaver for me. So and personally, that's where I've tried to take other people, the whole community. Now, I guess what's not really helpful from my point of view is when I guess the team tries to say that this group dynamic just doesn't exist, that this isn't real, that there's no one on the outside, everyone's getting equal attention. I think that kind of shows to some players that the team isn't necessarily aware of where they're at, or the fact that they are getting left out, or maybe that they might feel that the team's not really listening to their gripes and just really defending themselves. I think there does seem to be that defensive kind of atmosphere around that. Like when people start complaining, some DMs take that as a suggestion that they're not the perfect DM and that they're doing something wrong, and usually they try to sort of defend themselves. But it's not necessarily an accusation. It's just a whinge, really. And this is the reason why DMs don't need to be defensive about this sort of stuff. It's what's the solution to all this? There isn't a solution. Every single social group on the planet has this kind of dynamic going on. So, and NAFL's always going to have this. I think what we might be able to do is make being a red dot a little bit easier. Look, and this is my 2 cents worth. For me, back when the guilds were a bit stronger, things were better. Like I could get reasonably good gear through my guild, so I wasn't going to get insta-killed when DMs tried to make events for the higher level guys with the flashy gear. But when the power of the guild items went down, and guild activity went down, for me, being a bit of a red dot, that really reduced my game. Basically, the game was now focused solely on people who had good, solid DM contact, and I just wasn't getting that. Now, the guilds had a lot of problems as well. I'm not saying that pumping up the guilds again is the absolute solution, but I think what I think would be good is if the DMs didn't worry about unhappy red dot players making accusations that they're not good DMs. What I haven't, I've heard all of the gripes, man, but what I haven't heard are really specific accusations saying that DMs aren't good, they're not doing a good job. They're obviously doing a good job because people are obviously having fun. It's just the negative feelings that are created when you just feel like you're missing out on that fun. That's not anyone's fault. I hope I've illustrated before. It's just the way social groups fall together. But if we could maybe put in the game some kind of dynamic things that red dot guys can chew on, rather than just tell them that they're not actually having a problem, I think that might be better. Well, that's it, guys. Look, I hope that wasn't too painful to listen to and watch. I hope it straightens some things out. Just take it easy. Peace.